It's been kind of a rough year for me, and I've been having a hard time really getting back into doing much. I fixed up the garage a little bit, I did a little work on my bench, but getting back into the wood carving has proved to be difficult for some reason. So I decided to work on some small projects to hopefully get me back into a wood carving kind of mood. It's almost the holiday season, so I figured making some small Christmas presents and Christmas ornaments would be a good way to get started. So I started going through Pinterest, started going through my wood carving magazines, and I came up with some ideas to get me rolling and hopefully get a couple of videos out on the web working on some Christmas inspired wood carvings. So why don't we get started? I'm going to start. There's an article in Wood Carving magazine entitled 15-Minute Santas. Let's see if that's true. So this is what I'm working with today, which is a 2x7 piece of basswood that I picked up. It does have kind of a little streak of really soft wood going through it, but this was the last piece of basswood that the lumberyard had at the time, so I grabbed it. Alright, so I'm going to cut myself a piece off of it to use for today's project. So this is one of the upgrades I did on my bench, is I installed a T-track along the length of it. Well, actually I installed a new top first, and then I installed a T-track along the edge so I can use these type of clamps to hold down, and they really work really well. I pulled out my Japanese saw, which I really love working with. It just cuts really easily, and then I rip cut it with my bandsaw there to get a 2x2 piece, and then I used a piece of scrap to make a little jig to cut it down the side, so I have cut in half diagonally pieces. Okay, so in this first part I am kind of drawing out where the fold of the hat goes all the way down to the end of the hat. I messed it up a little bit, so I erased it and then went and started over again. Right there I was drawing the nose line, but then realized I messed up, so I turned it over to start again. So again, starting with the hat top and the fold. So that top line is the fold of it, and the bottom line is where the hat touches the forehead. So what I'm really doing here is just defining those lines a little bit, getting in around the lines really deep. I haven't even started the nose or anything. I'm just kind of really defining where those lines are going to end up being. For especially in corners and areas like that, you want to go really deep so that you get a really firm and defined line. And also because the front side you're going to be rounding over, so a lot of that front side is going to end up going away, and you want that line really deep so that it will mesh up with the rest of the hat and the beard when you get that done. Down there I cut the nose line and then just cut up to the nose line, so I know that that is where my nose is going to be. And since this is just it's not a realistic carving, it's more of a cartoonish carving, I just do the same thing with the nose and just kind of give him a bulbous nose and then do my lines around it. Now the deep areas around the lines you want to cut out, especially in the corner by the nose and the eyeball. That's where you really want to get it deep in there to define that area. Okay, then I went around the nose and did the same thing, kind of define the area around the nose. I'm not really shaping it yet, just kind of getting in those ley lines, and then right in there I start slowly shaping around the nose to get it to the kind of shape I want it in. And now that I got the front top area, I start carving out the bottom area of the cheeks and where the mustache is going to end up going. So clearing out the area above the nose and right under those cheeks, and highlighting that mustache. Again, dig deep lines and really get those definitions in there. Honestly, I don't know how some of these carvers in the magazines do it. Every time they just have like super clean lines. They're not struggling and cleaning out little bits of wood from anywhere. Perhaps their knives are just sharper than mine are, but I always have little wood in the crevices and stuff, little shavings that I have to pull out and sand out. Again, you can kind of see where I'm really highlighting these lines, pulling as much wood around the mustache as possible, and then going in and cutting down below the beard. So for this, it's really going to be, pull out the saw, but just kind of shaping the beard down into a rounded bottom. I can tell you that my hand was pretty sore by the time I got done with it. So I did pull out my mini little V tool to get into the crevices and stuff, and I use that a lot if there's wood in there that's just not coming out or not cutting cleanly. Then I'll get the V tool and see if I can't get it to cut a little cleaner. Like right there, and right there I'm trying to shape the head, and this is why you want to have deep cuts on the front, because the top has to be shaped as well as the bottom. So you want to make sure that you get that top area really deep, so that as you're rounding it out, you can get a more natural rounded shape rather than a more triangular shape. Again, cutting off the top and then rounding off the hat. I can't emphasize enough how important stropping your blades are regularly. I used to not do it a lot because I was primarily cutting cottonwood, and cottonwood is really very soft. But once you start doing anything harder than that, you need to keep your blade sharp, and making sure you have a strop there so you can strop it every once in a while will help a lot. The blade really started cutting a lot better as soon as I stropped it. And right here, I'm just shaping the ball at the end of the hat and getting that defined using the little V tool. Now, a lot of this can be done with a single knife, but since I have the tools, I make it easier. I don't know if it actually is easier, it just feels like it. And sometimes you'll see me just completely switch knives. Sometimes I get tired of the feeling of that one knife, so I move to another knife. It doesn't necessarily mean it's sharper or better, but just that it's different at that time. So you can kind of see that little white stick under my hand there. That's actually a piece of an emery board that I cut. Oh, there I am using it. Emery boards are really good for sanding in little crevices and cracks that it's hard to get to. Because a lot of times if you have like an old knife or just something that you can cut the board with and get it into smaller pieces, then you can get some really fine detailed sanding and get some of the larger edges out of the way without trying to get in there with sandpaper or something. So for these beard lines, I'm using just a V tool from my flex cut set. It's a really good tool. Probably the most used tool in my toolbox next to my knives would be the V tool. And keeping it sharp is a pain, but it is so used so much. It's just an amazing tool that you can do a lot of stuff with. So this is just a Scotch-Brite disc on a rotary tool. It's kind of like a very light sandpaper, and mostly it's just to get rid of big jagged areas or big slivers sticking out. Okay, so now we're painting, and I'm just using a white gesso, and that was actually the wrong bottle. That was a bottle of liquid medium for airbrushing. So this is the right one. This is a white gesso that I just got from a local craft store, and I put a base coat all over of this. And now that the white's dry, I just move on with the regular painting. These are just acrylic paints um, that I got from Walmart, from their Walmart craft section. So they're not expensive paints for most stuff, especially if it's going to be sealed. I don't see the need to use expensive paints yet. Maybe someday, but these seem to work just fine for this type of application. I'm not going to go too much into what colors I was using because, well, it's your Santa. Color it how you see fit. And honestly, I don't remember what colors they were because they all have funky shades of red and blue and whatever else. I just never remember the names of them. Mostly finished. I'm not that good at the painting part. Um, I've made very few carvings that I've had to paint, but a lot of these Christmas ornaments are going to have paint on them, so maybe it'll give me some practice. So in total, this project took much longer than 15 minutes. Now, the original article called for it to be 1 inch stock, and I was using 2 inch. So maybe I'll do another article later. Actually, maybe I'll do another video later with just the 1 inch and see if I can get it down to 15 minutes. But this was considerably longer. This was a couple hours still. So once I had finished painting it, I took them out to the garage and put a coat of polyurethane on it and put a little eye at the top. It turned out pretty good. Well, thank you for watching, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Please like and subscribe if you did.